Good day and welcome. My name is Jacob Willoughby. I'm a Vice President of Research and Analyst at Red Cloud Securities. With me today is Southern Silver, two representatives from the company, Rob McDonald, who's Vice President Exploration, and Larry Page, who I believe is Chairman. Now, normally we have our webinars on Thursdays at 2 p.m., but we've added webinars because of the current social distancing and closing of offices and things. I'm doing this remotely, and Southern Silver's representatives are in Vancouver. So we still do have a webinar Thursday. This one will actually be at 11 a.m., which is the plan because we're dealing with a company that is in Australia. Okay. So look for that on Thursday. Now, before we begin today's webinar, we first have to go over some disclosures. For Southern Silver, there may be some forward-looking statements made on this webinar, and I would direct participants to the cautionary note on page 2 of the Southern Silver corporate presentation, and also located on the company's website. For Red Cloud Securities, Inc., I would highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation to purchase or sell securities, or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. Also, this webinar does not take into account the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigations and seek their own professional advice before investment. For Red Cloud Securities, Inc., we would note that in the last 12 months preceding this webinar, Red Cloud Securities has been retained under a service or advisory capacity by Southern Silver. Now, I'd remind everyone who's participating online that you can type in questions at any time, and then after the presentation, we'll get to just as many as we can. With that, I'd like to turn this over to Larry, who will start off with an introduction, and then I believe Rob will go into the presentation further. Audio, Larry? I think you're muted.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
There you go.
Okay.
A bit of a false start, but let me give some brief introduction as to what we're going to talk about, and then I'll turn it over to Rob because he'll be talking about the more interesting thing. But I think it's useful to put matters into perspective, as well as being the president of Southern Silver, which is a company we're presenting today. I have a company called Mnemonics Exploration that looks after all of the affairs of 4 companies listed on the TSX Venture Exchange. The services that are provided are everything from legal to geology to accounting to fundraising. We've been in business about 15 years, and we've been very successful in helping companies create value as we raise money and deploy it in mineral exploration. We like to stay on the west side of North America. We have in the group 4 companies which have about, I think it's 16 properties, all of which are in various stages of development in British Columbia, Nevada, New Mexico, and Mexico. We're going to be talking about Mexico and a polymetallic property, which has moved to the stage now where it's attracting the interest of companies much larger than we are. And Rob will tell you a bit more about that. Today's a good day to be talking about gold and silver. I think that my depression of yesterday and the last few days has been allayed by awakening in the market, and it looks as if the commodities that our companies are developing are very much in demand. Dealing with Southern Silver, it's been active business for about 10 years in Mexico. We formed that company to see if we could emulate the success of a company called Western Silver, which was a penny dreadful 15 years ago. It had a property in Zacatecas, Mexico. Through a lot of hard work, geology and science, it developed the Penasquito ore body, which is being developed by Corp. That was the way that we created value for shareholders, and the shareholders on a takeout had a $1.2 billion payday. That's what we try to do, is put the companies in a position where they're attractive and accretive to developing companies. We believe that we're doing that in Southern Silver and that we've come through the curve. We have a resource. Rob's going to tell you about that. And we're looking for another payday for our shareholders. I'm happy to answer some questions, but you haven't come here to listen to me. So I'll pass it over to Rob. He'll tell you about the company, how it's developing its resource, and then we're happy to partake in a give and take. So in social distancing, I'm now going to slide out of the picture and Rob's coming in.
Okay. Thank you very much, Larry. And thank you all for tuning in and hearing about the Southern Silver story and the Cerro Las Manitas project. There we go. So, okay, where is it? Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry. Let me just get adjusted here. There we go. And so, as Jacob has said, we will be dealing with some forward-looking statements and statements that are aspirational in nature as we talk about the exploration and development of the Cerro Las Manitas project in particular. And these statements should be treated as such as we move through the presentation. In terms of some investment highlights, with Southern Silver, I'll be dealing mainly with the Cerro Las Manitas deposit located in Durango, Mexico. It's a large resource base, a high-grade deposit, and we're targeting underground production. And we're looking at developing the project into a premier polymetallic deposit within Mexico with our joint venture partner, Electrum Global Holdings. Our drill programs have continued to expand the resource at a very competitive cash cost of 7 cents an ounce silver equivalent, or half a penny a pound as a zinc equivalent. We are the highest grade amongst the top 10 silver development projects around the world, and we're located in a very safe jurisdiction surrounded by other significant silver and base metal projects. The group that we have with Southern Silver are experienced mine finders with a focus of developing value through discovery and exploration, and we've been successful in that throughout our history. We have a near-term potential for further expansion of the mineral resource, and we're looking at being a program that could expand the resource an additional 20% or more. The current mineral resource as of 2019 and May 2019 is 272 million silver equivalent ounces. That breaks down into roughly 50-50 indicated and inferred resources, and a metal deportment of 85 million silver ounces and 2.2 billion pounds of combined lead and zinc. We have a strong, high-grade resource growth profile and a near-term target of taking the resource from what is now 23.9 million tons to over 30 million tons of resource. And I'll get into that in a little bit more in the project. On next page, a quick review of the capital structure. As of March 18th, we were sitting at 10 cents. We're now up to, I think, 13, 14 cents trading today. And you see the enterprise value and reflected in that share price. Our fully diluted shares outstanding is just under 200 million, with 130 million issued and outstanding. And you can see the enterprise value of the per ounce of the project ranges between 17 cents an ounce and 8 cents an ounce as there. We have here the enterprise value of the company and a list of comparables. Southern Silver is sitting at around 8 cents, an enterprise value of 8 cents per ounce in the ground. This we believe is on the low scale, and that as we continue to develop the project, that we should be able to continue getting better value per ounces in the ground, as well as getting more value for the ounces that we discover. Again, for comparable sake, we see that we've got a very large resource as a silver on the silver equivalent basis, sitting very comfortably within the top 10 of exploration and development projects around the world. And we have some of the highest grade, if not the highest grade, of those top 10 projects. And then a quick review of the management team and the board. You'll see a number of people here that have been involved with exploration and discovery for decades. Within this group, they've identified and developed upwards of 12 different mines, including world-class deposits like the Peñasquito project, the San Cristobal project, the San Nicolas project. And so these are people that know what major deposits look like. They know how to explore them, and they know how to bring them to a development decision and move them forward to somebody that will be able to develop the projects as they should be. And now, in terms of the actual projects that we have in Southern Silver, we have two projects in southern New Mexico. It's the Aural project. This is an earlier stage porphyry type project that I won't speak of much in the remainder of the presentation, but I'm really going to focus on the flagship project, which is Cerro Las Menitas, located in the heart of the Faja de Plata in north central Mexico. This is a project that we run as a joint venture with Electrum Global Holdings, having 60% interest. We have 40% interest. Southern Silver remains operator of the project. We continue advancing this polymetallic project. As I said, it's a skarn silver lead zinc project, and we've had $18.5 million spent on acquisition and exploration since 2011 at a very effective cash discovery cost. We have new targeting that can continue to expand the resource, and we're also working at de-risking the project as we move it through the stages of a PEA. A little bit more detail of the Cerro Las Menitas project. We sit in southeast Durango, surrounded by major deposits. We're located in the heart of the Faja de Plata. We're in a very, very safe jurisdiction. We're on the edge of the Altiplano. We're not in the mountains. So as I like to joke, we're out in the middle of the bean fields, not the marijuana fields. So again, it's very, very safe. Since 2011 and drilling in 2011, we've completed 133 drill holes, just under 60,000 meters of drilling on the project, and $18.5 million spent on the project to date. We have an exploration pathway to near-term resource expansion that would take the resource up to and hopefully exceed 30 million tons. And that would be roughly equivalent to 330 to maybe 350 million silver equivalent ounces. In terms of the location of the property, as I said, we're on the edge of the Altiplano. We're located just 70 kilometers to the northeast of the city of Durango. It's a city of 1 million people. The highway to Torreon runs right through the property. We're surrounded by major players. on all sides, and we're located immediately adjacent to the town of Guadalupe, Victoria, a town of around 10,000 that acts as our base of operations. You can see we're surrounded by major players. To our east is Hecla Mining's San Sebastian project. To our west is Corp Mining's La Preciosa project. Avino Gold Silver is located just 5 kilometers to the northeast of our property package, which is located in yellow. It's a large property package, around 345 square kilometers at this time. And then on our northern boundary is a large property package held by Fresnillo. So we are in a fairly mature both exploration and development district. We have excellent logistics with power lines, gas lines, rail lines, highways running immediately through the project. And so it's very, very well located and very well suited for future mine development. In terms of our permitting community relations, we're fully up to date with that, with our work with the local ejido, as well as our state permits in effect and looking forward. And this is a photo of Cerro Las Manitas, the hill of many mines. You can see in the foreground the divided highway that runs through the property. One of the aforementioned bean fields again in the foreground, and that we access the property from the south, the town of Guadalupe, Victoria, about 5 kilometers away. But this is the actual Cerro, and you can see on there road networks and workings of some of the historical workings that have been developed on the hill, on the Cerro, for the last 40, 50 years or more. When we first started working on the project, we did some geophysics over the Cerro and identified some targets down on the western flank of the Cerro. These turned into the blind El Sol and Las Victorias zones. And then as we ended up drilling deeper, we identified the Skarn Front zone, which has ended up now being the largest deposit on the project. And you can see geologically, we have the model here. It's a fairly standard skarn type system that is typical in Mexican geology. And so you've got a central intrusion that acts as the heat pump for the system, a zone of alteration in green that wraps around the intrusive neck, a lot of the historic workings right around that intrusive neck in that alteration halo. And then outward from that, we identified, and to the west, we identified what became the El Sol and the Las Victorias and the blind zones. And then as we drilled deeper, identified the Skarn Front. This outline here, outlined in red and shaded in yellow, is the surface projection of the mineral deposit. And I show on the right, diagrammatically, a schematic section of what it looks like, with the blind and the El Sol zones sitting up in the upper part of the system, and then the Skarn Front zone sitting in the altered halo of the central intrusion. As you note, the Skarn Front is now the largest deposit in of the 4 that we've identified. It now accounts for over 200 million of the 272 million silver equivalent ounces on the property. This is a breakdown of those ounces, and you can see the roughly 23.9 million tons of resource that we've identified in the indicated and the inferred categories. And what I'd like to highlight here is the large amount of resource that's within the Skarn Front. So out of that 24 million tons, 18 million tons is in the Skarn Front. It also has some of the higher grade of mineralization of the deposits. So it's a deposit in an area that we've focused on over the last several years. We have further resource expansion targeting other parts of the Skarn Front deposit, and this is where we see additional growth in the deposit as we move towards our next milestone of 30 plus million tons in the deposit. Here is the Skarn Front deposit and what it looks like in the block model, and you see some very, very good continuity of the higher grade mineralization in the red and the magenta, with the red being greater than 500 gram silver equivalent, the magenta being greater than 1,000 gram silver equivalent, and then even some of the higher grade material from 250 to 500 silver equivalent in the yellow. Excellent continuity. We have mineralization that comes within tens of meters of surface and extends down to just over 1 kilometer in the Copper Deep area that located on the lower left part of the graphic. And then in terms of further resource expansion, I've alluded to this several times within the presentation. Where we see resource expansion, again, I'll highlight where we have our current resources. We have here in the Las Victorias area, further extension of those resources to the southeast. We think we can add some tonnage and some ounces in this area, but particularly over on the eastern side of the central intrusion, we think we have some excellent potential to add several additional million tons of resource to the resource base. And here you'll note that we've already drilled about 15 or 20 different drill holes on the eastern side, but at that time, none of the mineralization that was identified in those holes was brought into the resource. So even now, on the next phase of exploration, we're looking at offset drilling. It's not wildcat drilling. It's going step outs, 50, 100 meter step outs to zones of mineralization that we've already identified in drilling on the eastern side of the Cerro, and continuing to systematically expand that resource, and then pull the eastern side of the Cerro into the resource, along with what we've already established on the western side of the Cerro. We also have some other targets on the project, and this was an area that we focused on in 2017 and 2018. It's more grassroots exploration. In the upper part of the graphic is the area of the Cerro where we have the current resource. And so about 10 or 15 kilometers away is this new target area that we call the CLM West area. And here what's happened is that we've transitioned from the area of the Cerro where we have deeper styled mineralization hosted within Cretaceous aged sediments. And as you move to the southwest, you transition to younger volcanic rocks. And these are the similar rocks to what hosts the veins in the Avino gold silver deposit located about 5 kilometers to the northeast of this area. And so we've identified some veins and some breccias in the volcanic stratigraphy in the northern part of the CLM West claim block. We drilled 9 holes into this area, identified some anomalous silver mineralization and some very, very anomalous arsenic and antimony within some of these breccias and veins. This seems to reflect that we're in the upper part of an epithermal vein system, and that if we come underneath that, maybe by 100, 200 meters, we should start getting into the more silver and gold rich portions of the system. So not only do we have systematic resource building in the area of the Cerro, but we also have the capacity for brand new discoveries on this project, which continues to underscore the tremendous growth potential of the Cerro Las Manitas project. And then lately, we've been doing more metallurgical test work and continuing to de-risk the opportunity that we have here. And this is work that would build into an economic assessment that we continue to put the building blocks in place as we move forward on that path. The latest results that we have were from some locked cycle test work. And the highlights from that were tremendous recoveries in grades of the zinc concentrate. So a nearly 95% recovery zinc into the zinc concentrate at a grade of 54% zinc. Again, very excellent recoveries and high grade zinc mineralization. And then in the lead concentrate, again, some fantastic grades, 65% lead grade, and 5,500 grams silver within the lead concentrate. And again, some very competitive lead recoveries as well as silver recoveries that when taken with the copper concentrate that we've identified within the Skarn Front deposit, ends up being well over 80% recoveries of silver into saleable concentrates within the system. So this has all been very good work. It speaks to just the nature of the concentrates that we're able to develop from this system and the value of the concentrates that we're able to develop from this system. So all of that is good and will be built into further economic assessments that we continue to work on the project. Now, we referred earlier to the aural property located in southern New Mexico, and I'll just briefly touch on that here. This is an earlier stage copper porphyry system. It's a fairly typical Arizona, New Mexico laramide copper porphyry system. This is a much earlier stage than we have at the CLM project, but it's still quite exciting. We have a very, very large alteration system sitting on the property, over 6 square kilometers. The work that we've done suggests that this is a high-level porphyry system. It's zoned over 3 kilometers, going from a copper moly system in the center outboard into a silver lead zinc CRD type systems on a little bit outboard from the center of the system, and then further outboard is a distal gold system. So we've completed now some airborne surveys and some initial drilling on the project. We've identified targets, and at this time we're now looking for JV partners that will put the big bucks into the project and continue to develop that further. But this again is a very exciting asset that we have within Southern Silver that again points to the continued growth potential of the project. And so that's really what we have here. Southern Silver is emerging as a premier silver lead zinc company in Mexico with a robust project, and we're focusing on increasing the value of this project through continued exploration and development of the property, the Cerro Las Manitas property, with a financially sound and technically talented mine building partner. A reminder of the resource: we currently have 272 million silver equivalent ounces within the project. We're looking at a pathway to grow that to 300 to 350 million silver equivalent ounces. And we're also now looking at continued de-risking of the project as we put all the building blocks towards an economic assessment of the project throughout the balance of 2020. And I think that's really about it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Rob. That was excellent. So we've got time to go through some questions. There's a few questions from online. One of them here focused around the met recoveries, mentioning that they were very impressed by them and curious how you were able to achieve such high recoveries.
We've been working on that aspect of the project now probably for about 18 months. And it's really just through systematic work. As I've said a couple of times in the presentation, the project is fairly typical of skarn type deposits throughout Mexico, and which can have some excellent recoveries and excellent grades. And so we've been working with our subcontractors. Blue Coast Research is doing much of that work for us, and as well as other third-party consultants. And we've simply just systematically gone through and worked on it and worked on the systematics of the recoveries. And the big thing was trying to make sure that we could keep, because we had some copper contamination of the lead and the zinc concentrates. We've been focused very much of the last little while of making sure that we keep the copper out of those concentrates, and that has led to a tremendous value in both the lead concentrate and the zinc concentrate by being able to achieve that result.
Okay, great, thank you. Another question, very common to all companies these days, asking how the COVID-19 epidemic impacts where you are and your plans for 2020?
Well, I mean, at this point, and it's actually something I should have mentioned much earlier in the presentation, we are fully funded. Our treasury is around $4 million in the treasury. We have fully funded our project right now at Cerro Las Menitas for the continued maintenance of the project. And so now we're working with our partners, putting together both the exploration budgets and upcoming development budgets for the project. In terms of COVID-19, so far things have not hit Mexico that hard, but we would fully expect that to change, and that we will be fully prepared to take that into account and deal with that when the time comes. It may mean that exploration is off the table at this point, but we should be able to continue moving forward with our economic assessments and create news flow in that in that time. We also have some other initiatives that we're looking towards that should also provide news flow for the company moving forward as well.
Okay, great. Another question from online, just asking about your resource calculations and who did them. Were they in-house, or did you have independent groups do them for you? You could enlighten us about that.
Well, the resource, it's a 43101 resource, so it has to be an independent that is doing that, and that was Garth Kirkham from Kirkham Geoscience Systems. And he has done I guess this is our third iteration of the resource, and he's done all three of those resources. Yeah, so he is an independent. He's actually the past president of the Canadian Institute of Mining Metallurgy, and also the past chair of the Rules and Regulations Committee. And so again, we've got a tremendous amount of confidence in that in his work, and that we're getting good numbers, and numbers that are I guess consistent with everything that's being put out there for this type of study.
Right. Question from online asking to speak a bit more about the equity ratio of the project and the ownership of Electrum, what their plans are potentially for their ownership in the project and in the company.
Okay, I'll let Larry carry this one.
I'm not sure if your listeners are too aware of the Electrum company, so let me just give a bit of a thumbnail. Electrum was a company formed by Dr. Thomas Kaplan of New York, who had the big success in the silver industry and the oil industry, and so he's a billionaire and fairly smart as to what he's doing. I've known the Electrum principals for a number of years, and they approached us a couple of years ago and wanted to become a shareholder. And so they participated in a couple of our financings, which were done at lower prices when we were emerging out of the 2008 recession. It became apparent that that was not a good way to fund the project, and so they offered to spend $5 million US directly into the project to earn a 60% interest, and that was a 5-year time horizon, and they did it in 2 years. They have two representatives on our board, and one of them being Peter Cheeseborough, who's got a lot of experience in the industry, as well as Dr. Larry Buchanan, who found the San Cristobal mine. And he's the man when you're talking about this type of polymetallic skarn systems. Long premise here, but the point is that they have been very supportive as to our ongoing development. In our last round of warrant exercises. They exercise some $700,000 worth. They own about 33% of our issued capital. And we have not yet come to terms with them on the next exploration program, although we're having a board meeting at this time next week. And we expect to have that as an agenda item and see what's going on. Their principles of Nova Gold, for instance, which is a multi-million-dollar project. So they know their way around the mining patch. What we're going to do is going to be decided by our board of directors. To the extent that we're going to participate in another drilling program, we've given a proposal. We don't have a definitive response, nor have we decided when. And COVID-19, of course, is the strange thing that's happening to us. So we don't know whether, in fact, we could carry it out. Suffice it to say that their future as a shareholder is aligned with all the shareholders, and their future as an interest owner directly into the property is aligned with our corporation. All I know is that they have developed a number of mines. They've developed a property in Chihuahua, $350 million worth of capex. That property is under production right now. They receive funding from DOA, Japanese smelters, so they know how to raise the significant capital that's needed. Stay tuned. I don't know. I'm heavily invested here, and I expect to have a payday, which I think might be similar to the Western Silver payday that we referenced earlier. So I hope that responds to your question, and if not, I've got more.
Okay, I think that was very thorough. I think maybe we just have time for one more question. There's a question from online asking if there are any NSR or other royalties on the property.
Well, I think I can respond to that also. We bought the property for $4 million US over a period of time. We were helped with that when Freeport McMoran had an option to explore the property, and they were looking for a deep-seated porphyry copper system because they were very knowledgeable about the Penasquito property. They were very helpful in advancing monies to help us pay that $4 million. We've paid it. There are no royalties, and that's very significant when you're dealing with a major and in forming the structure of what the ultimate corporate structure will look like going forward. Long answer to a short question. No, there are no royalties.
That's great. I think that that covers off a very good amount. And I'd like to really thank you both for participating in this webinar. It's an excellent story, and it seems to be underknown in the investing marketplace. So we're very happy to have the opportunity to provide this for our viewers.
Thank you, and thanks to all the participants. Be well. We'll overcome this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.